So our first speaker today is going to be Roxanne Morris. Roxanne is the Marketing and Media Relations Manager for Tile Council of North America and Why Tile. Roxanne also writes about tile product development, standards, design trends for various trade publications, and is also an editor at whytile.com and manages the Why Tile Partner Network. Roxanne?
Thanks, Elena. So I'm going to start us off with talking about more macro trends in interior design, and then Kristen and Ryan will go more into like the tile-related aspects of those. So we're going to talk about them in relation to 4 tenets that you'll keep hearing about around the show, which are luxury in practice, health and wellness, outdoor living, and sustainability. These are all going to kind of relate to those 4 tenets, and an overarching kind of trend that will tie them all together is like a human touch, having personality in these designs. So the first one, as it relates to luxury, is creating a personal oasis. People want to have luxury to come home to after being out in the world. They want an emphasis on establishing a calm and restful environment so you can rest and recharge. This means spa-inspired bathrooms. It means adding 5-star flourishes any way you can to your bedrooms. These kinds of luxuries aren't new, but what's increasingly happening is people making them their own by choosing bolder materials that speak to them personally instead of maybe safe for resale designs. An example could be surrounding your bathroom in a green statement stone or a pink, or like here we have a interesting rusty one, instead of like a gray veined go-to that you maybe have already seen at a neighbor's house or something like that. These spaces will have more personality and, oh, thank you. Oh, got it. And the decor will have personal ties to the interests and the hobbies of the owner. There will be, let me go back one here. They'll have dedicated activity spaces, again, customized to the owner. And the images aren't there. And they'll also have flexible design. So you have people are dedicating spaces to, fitness, to their work, to their hobbies, but making them flexible so that maybe there's a Murphy bed, you have a guest room if you need it. People are more aware now than ever of the effect that their spaces have on their emotions and their well-being. They want spaces that make them feel healthy, feel safe. And part of that safety is a feeling of human connection. Sorry guys, these images are not showing. One of the obvious ways decor can affect our mood is with color. A renewed interest in bright and bold color is one of the trends we're hearing about most, and the shift away from mostly neutrals and whites is something many pros will attribute to the pandemic. Homeowners now seem more adventurous and willing to take chances on creating brighter, more vibrant spaces, using patterns that resonate with them and colors to add pop and personality. You've heard of maybe dopamine dressing, infusing your wardrobe with bright, cheerful colors. This is the same idea, just on your interiors. So the use of sunny hues, vintage browns, bright to dusty pinks, and striking blues as well. So this would have 2 color palettes on it. One to soothe, because we can be coming out of a time right now when we needed soothing, and going into a time when the aim is more to invigorate with brighter, more vibrant colors. Even the softer colors that are being used to have a quiet but a vibrant energy still. And palettes are continuing to trend warmer and warmer. Beige is, still taking over gray, but it has different undertones than it did in the 90s. It's less yellow, it's more pink and green undertones, making it fresher and more soothing. Those of you that were here last year heard us talking about high contrast interiors, so a lot of all white spaces, but with dark furnishings, dark accent walls, things like that. Well, now we're kind of completing that pendulum swing, and there's like fully dark spaces, meaning all four walls, maybe the ceiling if you're going to really go for it, especially in bedrooms and hospitality spaces. We also talked a little bit about curvaceousness last year at the show, and contours found in interior design and like tubular furniture, bringing softness to solid materials like metals and porcelain. Furnishings with curves bring a soft, wavy feeling to harder materials. Curved corners within walls, you'll see all around the floor. Curved cabinets, sofa backs, dining chairs, angular lines of furnishings are just softer. And taking that affinity for softness and rendering into ceramic will give you like elongated fish scales, for instance, which you'll see on the floor. The next trend we'll talk about is a human touch. So this is part of that health and wellness tenet. People want things made by people for people. They're customizing more art instead of buying reprints. Today, when you can get endless AI art at a few keystrokes, people are turning to hand-drawn art for like logos, for instance. They want to know that a person was there to make something with intention and that it lives in the world outside of a computer. This also is evident in hand-broidered and hand-stamped textiles, imperfect potteries, handmade art, which is turned into things like hand-rubbed hardware and varnishes on cabinets. This allows people to keep making their spaces more personal, and they also make it more tactile. So like on the floor, you'll see like honed surfaces that are more gentle to the touch and approachable, and that suggest that they were made again for a person by another person. The next part of this health and wellness tenet is designing for physical wellness. So we'll talk about designs for physical wellness and designs for mental wellness. For physical wellness, there's a lot more today automation for things like health, safety, with like the Nest systems, the Ring systems, making people feel that like healthy, safe. Indoor environment monitoring, like for instance, air quality purification systems, things like that are based on your own preferences and even biometrics. There's more conversations today around choosing healthy materials, and we know that the tile industry has been proactive about this desire for healthy materials via the Material Ingredient Guide, which produced green screen assessments for the vast majority of material ingredients used for ceramic tile, mortar, and grout manufacturers. The connection to the outdoors is part of our outdoor living tenet, and homeowners, you know this, have been craving deep connections to outdoor spaces. So we see like a lot of sliding glass doors that open your whole interior to the outside, or adding large windows, maximizing views and bringing in tons of natural light is a more attainable way to help homeowners feel connected to the outside. Sorry. I'm trying to advance here. There's also been a lot of increased searches for swimming pool designs. People are making their outdoor spaces specifically what they want. One of the things that helps them do this that you'll see on the floor is coordinating collections with 2cm tile pavers and with a identical tile thinner meant for the inside, so you can create those seamless transitions from the indoors to the outdoors, allowing you to make a better use of your entire space. And the last tenant, the sustainability tenant wheel, is about making a lasting style. So instead of buying things to throw them away for a number of years now, people have wanted longer lasting materials, energy efficient materials and appliances, both for your indoors and outdoor environments. Sourcing products made in environmentally friendly ways is now more of everyone's concern. It's not just a concern of the A&D community. People seeing the effects of the buy it and throw it away consumerism has them realizing that developing a personal lasting style isn't just going to make your space beautiful and unique to you. It's great for the environment as well. And this kind of goes back to that notion in the beginning of choosing something that resonates with you, regardless of what's trending or what's good for your algorithms. It's wiser in the long term to choose something that you won't want to feel the need to replace later when next season's trends are becoming obvious. And that's all for our macro trends. I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, and she's going to talk about how these are relating more to tile specifically.
Okay. Hello? Okay. Got it. All right, we're just going to wait for that's All right, well, good morning, everyone. And kudos to all of you for being here first thing in the morning. Italians love their late night dinners, and I've only had one cup of coffee, so please bear with me. So I'm Kristen Coleman, Senior Vice President of Novità Communications and a longtime marketing rep for Ceramics of Italy and the Italian Association of Ceramics, which is one of the co-owners of the show. So Roxanne did an amazing job telling you about the larger macro trends, design trends that obviously inform what manufacturers are producing these days. So let's start diving into some of the specific tile trends that we're seeing. So I wanted to start off with a fun one. I don't know if you love Farrah Fawcett as much as I do, but so that 70s show. You may have noticed this trend popping up if you open up magazines, furniture, catalogs. You'll see a lot of rattan, bamboo, rope furniture, which is part of the enduringly popular boho lifestyle. But the 70s actually had a few distinct personalities, as many of you may know. So on one hand, it celebrated, glam rock, right? Ziggy Stardust, T-Rex, lots of flashy prints. There were, emerging brands like Versace coming out, and all the glitter and glam that accompanied roller disco and boogie nights. So there's a little bit of that, but more than anything, it was naturalistic and breezy. So you'll definitely see a lot of this at the show. I would say one of the overarching trends is this feeling of being naturalistic. So getting back to the 70s, as yacht rock emerged, right, in the later half of the decade, materials and patterns conjuring the sailing lifestyle was not far behind, which you can clearly see in this shot. But there's also lots of stripes and wavy patterns, and of course, wood paneling, which some of you may not be nostalgic for, but these collections are a little more elevated, I promise you. In fact, this one is called Yacht Club. Then in terms of colors, the 70s had a lot of warm and earthy tones like mauve and brown, ochre and orange. So keep an eye out as you're walking the show. The next trend I want to cover is Emerald City, because green is one of the most popular colors in tile design this year, which designers use all the time to great effect. I wanted to incorporate just a couple of projects just to give you a quick snapshot. So this is an office designed by Gilan Vinyas with one of the most Instagrammable staircases and lots of different materials in various shades of green. Here's a more subdued approach from the British designer Ilse Crawford. So not using tile, but you can kind of see different shades of green in practice. So if we turn to color psychology, no other hue conjures nature like the color green, which is great for creating biophilic spaces and bringing the outdoors inside. It's scientifically proven to have a calming effect, easing stress and forcing the brain to relax, making it a great tool when designing spaces, especially for comfort and wellness. You can use it to create more subdued interiors with muted tones like aloe and sage, or add a little texture with the look of natural materials like green, Chepota gray, and Calcutta green. You could also take it up a notch with more saturated colors, emerald, these lime green tiles, which are great for creating accent walls. You can use it to create show-stopping interiors with the look of jade, Patagonia green marble. And of course, this also applies to furnishings and outdoor spaces as well. In terms of shapes, I think bricks are one of the most popular formats right now in tile, and with good reason. Its small size lends to the feeling of something handmade and artisanal, which is in high demand, particularly in residential, retail, and hospitality design. Here are two different project examples that show tile bricks in situ with two completely different aesthetics. So on the left, it's a museum in Helsinki, and the brick tiles definitely lend a sense of character to the floor. On the right, colorful bricks help tie in a store display for a cookware brand in LA. And as Roxanne mentioned, there's definitely a lot more color, so you'll be seeing a lot of that. It also performs well as a module, so you can create wholly unique compositions, like you can see in these two shots here. They can be stacked vertically and horizontally to create monochromatic environments with some personality. Or you can use them to create myriad patterns like stripes, chevron, and herringbone. There's also a lot of options with beautiful three-dimensional surfaces and various finishes and chromatic variations. So even if specified in a single color, it generates visual interest for walls, furnishings, floors, anything you can imagine. Sizes can range from 2x6 up to 3x15, and designs also include petite marble looks and wood designs. All right, so the fourth trend is something I like to call new naturals. As manufacturers reach unbelievable heights in high-definition digital printing, ceramic tile is really becoming a blank canvas for artistic expression with nature as its muse. It's no longer just mimicking a simple wood look. They're taking it to the next level. So here you can see hyper-realistic interpretations of sky and water, which would be fantastic for hospitality in particular, while others present precious precious stones, right, with like blown out prints. In this case, 2 different versions of agate. There's also a lot of florals this year, but they're more delicate and painterly. I mean, essentially acting like ceramic wallpaper, but with no repeat and much more durability. Some even pull floral details from famous paintings. This is a collection the company collaborated with the Van Gogh Foundation. Companies also continue to release really inventive renditions of wood. So you'll see some wood paneling and decorative, kind of trippy inlays. Even new materials not really explored in ceramic yet, like cork, or the mahogany used to build Venetian boats. You have really almost pop art, illustrative interpretations of wood. And the last interesting point, hard to tell from this shot, but the thing about this trend, I mean, manufacturers have invented wholly new typologies that don't actually exist in nature, combining the various characteristics from different stones to create something completely unique. And also achieving combinations that are nearly impossible to achieve without the time and hands of skilled craftsmen. So it's another advantage of digitally printed porcelain. So Roxanne spoke a lot about the great outdoors. You know, ever since the pandemic, there's been a complete boom in outdoor living, with homeowners, hotels, restaurants, even offices. In fact, one of my architecture clients just released a workplace amenities report, and one of the top, the most desirable amenity was access to outdoor space. So in commercial as well. And that's where ceramic tile comes in. So, I mean, as most of you in this room know, unlike other materials that can crack, warp, fade, porcelain tile is a workhorse that can withstand the elements. It's frost-free, water and heat resistant, and offers incredible anti-slip advantages. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of designs to choose from, spanning wood, stone, terrazzo, that effortlessly blends with Mother Nature. Even pure solid colors. This is one of the manufacturers, the collection's called Pigmenti, and it creates really impactful architectural spaces. In fact, this one kind of looks like a Barragan house. So companies Roxanne touched upon this before, but companies are offering complete programs, and that also extends to outdoors. So one collection with different finishes and thicknesses to create a seamless transition from indoor to outdoor. Yeah, in commercial, but also in residential settings. And then, of course, there's 2 and 3 centimeter pavers, which have been around for, what would you say, 7-ish years? But yeah. But, you know, getting more sophisticated, adding more sizes and material looks. They can easily be dry laid onto grass, gravel, and dirt. In fact, during the pandemic, my husband and I finally installed pavers in our backyard, and it created an instant outdoor living room in a matter of hours. It's a total game changer. Then special pieces, pool coping, and special trims to create a total outdoor look. Collections specifically designed for outdoor kitchens. One of our manufacturers developed an invisible induction cooktop that first started with indoors. Now they're tailoring it to the outdoors as well, which I'm really excited about. And of course, facades. And we're seeing a lot more of this in North America. In fact, for the CID Awards and for our tile competition, we received dozens of submissions with exterior cladding projects. So for multifamily, and commercial, but even for private residences. In this case, the architect wanted a thin yet light and strong material to withstand the winters in Canada, and to create a ventilated rain screen while avoiding any thermal bridging. All right, the last trend I want to talk about, and then I'll hand it off to Ryan, is sensory seduction. So, I mean, we all know that tile is a tactile material, but this new crop of tiles really begs to be touched and really excites the senses. So, I mean, one way to do that is visually with playful graphics and a sense of the unexpected, or stone looks that exude luxury and really beg to be touched. And you'll find hundreds of beautiful marble looks on the show floor. But to be honest, it's mostly about the surface design, which seems to be the next frontier in tile production. So manufacturers offer structured finishes like bush hammered and rigid or like grooved to incredibly soft surfaces that are velvety or even silky to the touch. Many companies are investing in new technologies that allow them to produce the graphic and the surface design simultaneously, which really adds depth to the material and creating ever more realistic interpretations of natural materials. For example, this manufacturer uses 3D technology to recreate the open hole look of natural travertine. You also have a plethora of three-dimensional surfaces, including those inspired by artisanal techniques like plaster, or even handcrafted lava tiles. That's it from me. I'm going to pass it off to Ryan Fazan next.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. That was like a perfect segue, actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I try to set you up good, right?
No, well, it's great. I love doing this session. My name's Ryan Fazan. I'm the technical consultant for Tile of Spain. I worked in creative direction in ceramics as well, and installation for most of my career also. So I try and give a bit of a more technical approach. And I love this session because all of us kind of hit on the same ideas, but we all present it in a completely different way. And I'm hoping to give you a bit of a different perspective that's a little bit more on what's changing in technology that's allowing us to get to everything that Kristen just talked about in the last section, and everything that Roxanne was showing in the macro trends. And one of the kind of core centralized themes that's happening is there is the beginning. I always try and take an optimistic approach, and there's the beginnings of a shift towards our relationship with the world becoming more of a center focus. There's a slight sort of change where the connotation of a human footprint on the planet is changing from something that used to be wholly negative to something that maybe turns into a much more positive impact. And I hope by the end of this, you're going to see how tile has the capability to really lead the forefront of that. And a lot of it comes with the capabilities that we're seeing in the boom in technology right now that's allowing us to be able to do everything that we're seeing. And what we're getting to is creating spaces and creating impact as a species that is in symbiosis with the world and not in domination. And the way that we choose our materials and sort of frame the buildings and things that we do really allows for that. And we're starting to see that shift in multiple different industries. I always try and look at everything outside the building industry and architecture before I start to look at what the trends are in this industry. And what we're seeing, I don't know if anyone else has seen the word regenerative being sort of tagged on before other industries. We're seeing these subcultures of other industries like tourism, agriculture, tech, and entertainment being being regenerative tourism. And there's a slight shift there where it's not necessarily primarily profit first, it's benevolence first. And then, of course, profit, obviously. The other thing, and where tile really comes to the fore here, is because of its long lifespan, we've always had a long frame view, a much longer than a human lifespan view of how we interpret trends. If you look at Pantone's Color of the Year and all the wonderful color theory that the paint companies and everything that's a soft good comes out with, they have very literal, very fluid trends that happen every year. They come out with them each and every year. Tile doesn't get replaced each and every year, thank God. And that's part of why it's able to kind of lead this regenerative sort of movement in a symbiosis first rather than domination first mindset. So what we look for in this industry is how are we going to complement these waves of colors that are going to go on for the next decade or more. We're looking at what the trends are overall, and we're going to see that in just a sec as well, but I really want to focus on some of the technology that's allowing the things to happen today like this here, where it like Kristen said, it literally begs you to touch it. It's a multi-sensory experience in tile today. It's not just visual. And one of the biggest things was the introduction of digital decoration. I don't use the term inkjet because that kind of puts us in a mindset of printing on paper, which is only 4 colors, and that's the colors is the key word there. It's only color. We have transitioned so far beyond that in ceramics. We're not just printing color today, and you can see that evolution since the first inkjet machine was introduced in the year 2000. It took about a decade for us to add an extra 1 or 2 colors. It started with white, and then companies that were developing a lot of stone looks really needed a mid-spectrum gray, so they brought in a gray ink as well. So we moved up to 6 bars. Then we started to play with finish, and we were able to add glossy, matte, or satin to those colors and be able to print that digitally as well, adding another channel. We added an extra effect a few years later, and then, but this year, so basically from 2018 to 2023, we went from 8 bars or 8 channels in our graphics files up to 12. So we're printing equally as much in finish, in structure, and in non-color-based techniques as we are in actual color in our tiles. And that's what's getting this natural view. So if we look at that picture right there, that's obviously a picture of nature, and we see blues in the ocean, we see the yellow from the sun, sand colors in the beach, and greens from the moss that's on the rocks. So that's how we have internalized that in this industry up until now, because our capabilities weren't such that we could actually reproduce what actually goes on in nature, because if we break it down into pixels, you can see how much color is going on there. In the blues, there's purple and pinks. In the golds, there's browns and rust tones, and same thing in the greens. That's the amount of spontaneity and color that happens in real life. That's what realism truly is, and that's what we can get to now in digitally producing tile, because we're producing reflectivity. We're reproducing everything that goes into what makes up a natural color. Everyone has talked about the ability to manipulate the thickness of our tile, and that's something that a lot of ceramicists really try very hard to wrap their heads around, because that's one of the ways that we can reduce the environmental impact of our tile and the cost to the end consumer, because it's less raw materials, it's more that we can put into containers. So the more we can think about where our tile is being used and design it specifically with the exact thickness that will meet the technical characteristics. We're doing that more and more today, so start taking a critical look at what the thicknesses is for your manufacturers and how they're trying to make the product as cost-effective and sustainable as possible. This is one thing that's really exciting. In just about a year ago now, in May, so 11 months ago, the ITC, a ceramic research think tank in Spain, partnered with one of the graduate studies ceramic engineering programs in trying to develop a hydrogen-fired kiln. They successfully did it last year. And what they're doing in a smart way to let the industry be able to financially work with this transition is they're actually adding hydrogen to a natural gas kiln, and they're doing a blended fuel source right now. That was successfully done a year ago. What that does is it lets the industry use hydrogen and integrate hydrogen to reduce the fossil fuel and emissions that the kilns have, and it gives the industry some time to sort of get into this technology before they have to fully replace their production lines into a non-carbon-based fuel. So that's enough of all the technical stuff. I'm going to get into a little bit of aesthetics that is, again, a bit of a different shift than, it's along the same lines, but it's another perspective. And this is something that I always kind of think about in terms of trends, because trends are based on what our technical capabilities are. Our sort of interpretation and manifestation of trends depends on what our capabilities are. In this case, we're trying to light up a space, and each of these four things lights up a space perfectly fine, but each of them does it in a more efficient or maybe prettier or better way. And that's kind of where we're at today. Is a lot of the trends that we've seen are just like tree rings. They build on each other, and the ones that happen before influence what's coming after. And if we look at the trends from 2019 to 2022, everything on there are kind of the macro trends that really influenced our product development decisions in tile. And all of them are still relevant today, but as you saw in that digital decoration slide, our capabilities are so much better than they were 4 years ago today in the average manufacturer. So what we can do to embody those trends today is absolutely different from it was 4 years ago. So biophilia is something that really kind of crashed home in a hard way for a lot of people as we got stuck indoors for a year. And it really hasn't gone away. We've realized that our relationship with the planet and with nature in the world is extremely important to our mental health and our well-being as people. So one of the things that we see is with this ability to decorate in not just color, but in texture and in luminance and in reflectivity, we're able to create these multi-layered effects in our decorative programs. And because tile is a lifelong solution and a high cost and high value solution, we're seeing a huge rise in third fire decoratives coming back, which is something I was really excited about, because third fire decoratives really are kind of the peak of the decorative capabilities in the industry. And it's something, because we work in glaze, no other material can do. So I'm really excited to see a lot of third fire decoratives come back into vogue with a lot of the manufacturers. I mean, the square meter decoratives that are printed just like the field tile are so much more than they used to be. We're getting these ghosting effects where they're printing a different surface finish into certain areas, so that depending on your angle and where the light is hitting the surface, you see or don't see multiple layers of definition within these natural designs. Now, I love seeing these micro tessellations. Tessellations are very human, very mathematical, where it's this pattern that's repeating in different rotations, and it's creating these infinite graphics that add a human touch, like Roxanne was talking about, to a natural effect. And then, of course, we're literally doing wallpaper, because it's actually going to last in a lot of the places where we use wallpaper, like hotel bathrooms, which I see all the time, and ceramic versions do a lot better than a paper material would. This is one in the biophilia trend that I think this year is embodied so much more, and it's something that a lot of people don't think about, but it's the contextual relation with our materials. They don't have to actually have anthropomorphic or vegetational prints on them. If this cement series, if you look at all the colors in the oxidization and stuff that's happening in this cement metal mashup, all of those colors are the exact same colors that you see in that green wall beside the tub. We're seeing a lot of this happen in a lot of our programs today, where the accent colors are mimicking natural vegetation in certain styles. So they support the use and incorporation of plants and vegetation in a lot of our buildings as well. I'm going to kind of rapid fire because we've seen a lot of these things as well. Organic and raw forms, minimally worked materials that are letting the soul of the material really shine and not trying to perfect them for for our idea of them. Really letting what the materials are shine is something that we're able to do because of how much we can digitally manipulate, not just the visuals of the surface, but the structure and the finish of the surface as well. We're getting these organic structures. We're able to deal with reflectivity to add variable contrast, just like we see in nature, where we print the overall glaze in a hyper matte, and then our digital decoration comes in a regular satin, and then we've got glossy effects as well, so that it changes just like something in nature would, depending on the angle of the sun and our relationship to it. We're looking for authenticity today, and we're favoring that. Authenticity is always going to trump embellishment in the way that we're looking at things right now. And what's more authentic in this industry than raw earth? Because that's really all we are, is baked dirt. So we're seeing a lot of these raw earth tones and the natural patinas that we can freeze frame in the perfect state of weathering within our glazes, because we can print not just in color today. So in monochromatic color palettes as well as natural materials, we're seeing the return of a broader range of tonal variation, like V3 and 4, and even beyond that, because we're dealing with different finishes now as well. So we want materials that are able to protect and respond to the changes in our busy lives. There's a lot of illusionary install products that are coming up today that are something that can be set in a large panel that looks like a small tessellation that actually drives the installation cost down. We're able to do that because of a lot of the ancillary manufacturers that are creating some really, really smart clip systems like this and other tools for our tradespeople to be able to achieve the effects that we see in our catalogs. We're seeing some real-world solutions coming up, like this one here. That's a 2 cm paver, but it's actually got integral drainage, and it's a tongue and groove system, so it can be dry laid. It's very simple, so that water gets drawn away from the surface of the tile, and that interlocking system makes it seamless for exterior installations around pools and fountains. And that seamless performance is something that everyone's talked about today, where we can transition from inside to outside to leverage all of the space, not just within our walls, but out. And the ability to make our material, because it's ceramic, we can make it in anything that would never survive. In this case, all of these stones, the Bernini marble, the Ceppo de Gray, all of them are very, very reactive to acids. A lot of them can't take a lot of heavy use or traffic, and being able to reproduce them faithfully in ceramic makes you able to have that look in a format that is contingency agnostic, that can sort of live up to anything. Finally, everyone thinks back and has memories. Memories are always rose-tinted, right? Like we always kind of look back and remember the best things about different periods, and that's something that we're able to do today in the 70s, in the 90s reboots that we're seeing, and we're sort of re-envisioning these looks like terrazzo and stracciatella terrazzos and things like that were largely commercial, pretty boring, and we're seeing them in very modern takes that take the best of those kind of period-specific designs and bringing them into modern. This is something that I kept seeing coming up Everyone's familiar with MCM, mid-century modern. Over the past year, we're seeing a real rise in Middle Ages modern, a lot of handcrafted stuff. Another name for that is castlecore, and this kind of illusionary memory of sort of romanticizing past periods in design is something that we're seeing a lot. The sort of cornucopia of bringing in painting styles and glazing styles and mashing them into a certain period's design and creating a look that's wholly new and really shaping the future of ceramics. So at the end of the day, what we're doing in this industry is really designing for benevolence and creating the idea that our creations have consequences that go far beyond us, and our medium that we work in ceramics, does that better than almost anything. So, hope you enjoyed.
So thank you, Ryan, Kristen, Roxanne, for an amazing perspective. 3 different perspectives, all very inspiring, and I think it was such a great, thorough look into all the global tile trends. And now, if you want additional information before we wrap up, we're going to jump to a few quick Q&A, but Coverings is actually offering 4 trends tours on the show floor. So there's going to be sustainability, health and wellness, luxury, as well as outdoor spaces. So for a deeper dive to see all of that on the show floor, check the mobile app for more details on times and dates of those tours, as well as other educational opportunities. There's so many to take advantage of here at the show. We do have a mic runner, and we have a few moments for some questions for our panelists. So just raise your hand, and we will try to get to you all. Right by the...
Good morning. Regarding the printing, you indicated that the finishes are now, you're able to incorporate finishes, not only colors. Does that mean also the glossy finishes?
I mean, yes. It depends on how you're asking the question. If it's an overall,
I'm looking more towards the finish, trying to distinguish the porcelain matte from the polished finish that gives you the high gloss.
Yeah, that's a completely different process. That's generally a dry frit that's laid on the surface and then polished. So in that case, like a full polish, no, that's not done digitally. That's done the traditional way.
Any other questions?
Good morning. On the 3D technology with doing embossed register where the texture follows the pattern on the image, how difficult is that technology and how widespread is it?
I mean, it's becoming much more widespread, I think. It depends on the quality of your graphics, which depend on the quality of your imagery. I think actually AI is probably going to have a lot of input on that. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next year. But basically, as long as you have your graphic file prepared correctly and you have the capability of using either glue to add volume with a dry micronized frit or granilla, or like a camaleonte that sinks down and carves into the surface, or a combination of the two, and they're in register in your graphics file and in separate channels, and they're aligned to the inkjet printer. I mean, this is getting kind of technical, but yes, it's not difficult if you know what you're doing, and nowadays having the ability to have multiple effects in the same printer allows for it to be easier done, and for the end result to be much more realistic.
Any other questions? I think we have to get to wrapping it up right up here.
So my question is in regards to the brick shape itself. I know you said that's the overall shape that's popular for 2023. However, as far as laying it out, would you say that stacked on top of each other or a herringbone is going to be the most popular this year? or what exactly, layout-wise, is it trending towards?
That's a good question. I've seen a lot more vertical stacking, right? Because you're a traditional horizontal and, right? Do you guys
Absolutely,
agree?
Kristen. I think
But-
a lot of the more linear, very linear looks, but
Yeah.
we're still seeing it being done. I think it just depends on the overall aesthetic of the room, of the space
The
you're
specific
designing.
project, yeah.
Any others? Well, thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to our panelists. This was a great presentation of all trends. And thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the first day of coverings.